your side.
The air in Logan's old room was thick with dust, heavy with the weight of a year's worth of unanswered questions. I stood there, alone, my fingers trembling as I pried open the loose electrical outlet behind his desk. It was a reckless act, born of desperation, a refusal to let my brother fade into the story the world had written for him. A year had passed since Logan vanished, since the world declared him gone forever. And yet I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still out there, waiting to be found. The room smelled faintly of his cologne, a ghost of the life he'd left behind, and every creak of the floorboards felt like a whisper of his presence. Mom had begged me to stop coming here, to stop digging through his things, to accept that he was dead. But I couldn't, not when every fiber of my being screamed that Logan was still alive. I'm Claire, the youngest of 3 siblings in a family that always felt like it was balancing on a knife's edge. At 24, I was the quiet one, the observer, the one who watched from the sidelines while my brothers Derek, the golden child, and Logan, the shadow, navigated a world that seemed to bow to one and ignore the other. Derek, 32, was the pediatrician everyone adored, the one who saved children's lives with a steady hand and charmed the neighborhood with his easy smile and warm charisma. He was the pride of our family, the son who could do no wrong, the one whose name was spoken with reverence at every dinner table. Logan, 4 years younger, was different, brilliant but reserved, a software engineer who spoke more fluently in code than in conversation. He lived in Derek's orbit, always a step behind, always overlooked. I loved them both, but Logan was my confidant, the one who understood what it meant to be invisible in a family dazzled by Derek's light. That March morning last year was etched into my soul. I'd gone to Logan's apartment to borrow a book, expecting to find him hunched over his laptop, lost in a world of algorithms and possibilities. Instead, I found the door ajar, his wallet on the counter, his phone dead, no note, no sign of struggle, just absence. The police descended, their questions sharp and clinical, but every lead fizzled out. They searched his apartment, interviewed neighbors, traced his last known movements, but it was as if Logan had evaporated. They called it a mystery, a case with no answers. Derek took charge. As he always did, he organized search parties, plastered the city with posters, his face tear streak on every news channel. My brother, he'd say, voice breaking just enough to feel real. He's out there somewhere. The city rallied behind him, donations pouring in, volunteers scouring parks, alleys, and riverbanks. I joined them, my heart pounding with hope, trusting that Derek's determination would bring Logan home. I believed in him. We all did. 3 months later, we held a memorial. The church was packed, neighbors, colleagues, even strangers who'd seen Derek's pleas on TV. He stood at the podium, his speech so raw it brought the room to tears. Logan was my best friend, he said, his voice cracking, his eyes glistening with grief. He was the heart of our family, and we'll never stop looking for him. The cameras ate it up, the headlines calling him a grieving hero, a beacon of hope in a city desperate for something to believe in. I sat in the front row, clutching Mom's hand, feeling the weight of his words like a stone in my chest. But something didn't sit right. Logan wasn't the type to just disappear. He was meticulous, deliberate, the kind of person who planned every move like it was a line of code in a program he'd spent years perfecting. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were missing something, that the story we'd been fed was incomplete. That feeling grew into an obsession. I kept coming back to his room, sifting through his books, his clothes, his life, searching for a clue. That's when I found it, a tiny USB drive, tucked carefully behind the electrical outlet, hidden like a secret he couldn't bear to share. My heart pounded as I plugged it into my laptop, the screen flickering to life with folders labeled truth and letters. I clicked, and Logan's voice filled the room, low, steady, but laced with a pain that cut through me like a knife. "Clara," he said in the first recording, "if you're hearing this, I'm sorry, I didn't want to leave you. But I had no choice. My breath caught in my throat. He wasn't dead. He was speaking to me. Across time, across whatever, distance separated us, and his words carried a weight I wasn't ready for. The recordings were a confession, a diary, a plea for someone to listen. Logan spoke of Derek, not the saint the world knew, but a manipulator who'd spent years undermining him. Logan had been a rising star at his tech firm, working on software that could have changed lives, educational tools for kids, apps that made learning accessible to those who needed it most. But an anonymous tip accused him of leaking company secrets, triggering an internal investigation that tore his world apart. He was cleared, but the damage was done. He lost his job, his reputation, his confidence. Friends drifted away, convinced by whispers that he was unreliable. His girlfriend, Sarah, was transferred to another city after what Logan called a quiet word from Derek to her boss. Our parents dismissed his claims, calling him paranoid, unstable, a disappointment compared to Derek's shining example. I wanted to believe them, to trust that Derek was the hero everyone saw. But the more I listened, the more the pieces fell into place. One recording stopped me cold. Derek's voice, sharp and venomous, cut through the static. If you don't shut up, I'll make sure you have nothing left in this city. I played it again and again, my hands shaking, my stomach churning. This wasn't the Derek I knew, the brother who carried me on his shoulders as a kid, who'd patched up my scraped knees with a grin and a band-aid. This was a stranger, a man who'd used his power to crush his own brother. Logan's letters, typed and never sent, detailed years of isolation, of being gaslighted by the family he loved. I tried to tell you, Clara, he wrote in one, his words heavy with resignation. But no one listens to the quiet one. Not when Derek's voice is so loud, not when his lies are so convincing. I couldn't let it go. Derek was now running for state medical director. His campaign built on his image as a family man, a beacon of integrity. Billboards with his face were everywhere. His slogan, integrity in care, mocking me at every turn. He was set to receive an award as an icon of medical ethics. His speeches filled with stories of our close-knit family and his devotion to his lost brother. The hypocrisy burned like acid in my veins. I started digging, alone at first, afraid of what I'd find, but unable to stop. I pulled up Logan's old bank statements, combing through transactions. For any clue, ours turned into days into weeks, as I pieced together fragments of his life. That's when I found it. A withdrawal of $12,000, followed by a purchase under a name I didn't recognize. Neil Rowe. It was for an old RV, bought in cash through a third party. My heart raced. Logan wasn't dead. He was hiding. Tracking him down was like chasing a ghost. I followed the trail through cryptic records, dead-end leads, and sleepless nights. I called dealerships, scoured online forums, even drove to a used RV lot in a neighboring state, pretending to be interested in a similar model just to ask questions. Every step felt like a betrayal of the family I'd once trusted. But I couldn't stop. The trail led me to a small town in Oregon, nestled at the edge of a forest where the world seemed to slow down. The RV was parked near a quiet creek, its paint-chipped but sturdy, surrounded by wildflowers and the hum of cicadas. My heart was in my throat as I knocked, the sound echoing in the stillness. The door creaked open, and there he was, Logan. Alive, his face was thinner, his eyes older, but it was him. Clara, he said, his voice soft, almost disbelieving. How'd you find me? We sat by the creek for hours, the truth spilling out like water over stones. Logan hadn't run because he was weak. He'd run to survive. Under the name Neil Rowe, he was freelancing as a coder, living simply in a town where no one knew his past. He showed me his laptop, filled with projects he'd built in secret tabs for kids, educational tools for rural schools, code that sparkled with the brilliance I'd always known he had. This is who I am, he said, his voice steady for the first time. not the failure Derek made me out to be. He told me about the years of sabotage, how Derek had spread rumors, used his influence to isolate him, even convinced our parents that Logan was unstable. He'd lost his job, his friends, his girlfriend, his place in the world. I tried to fight, he said, staring at the creek, its surface catching the fading light. But fighting someone like Derek is like fighting a storm. You just get swept away. I told him about Derek's campaign, about the award, the billboards, the lies that painted him as a hero while Logan was erased. Logan's lips curved into a wry smile. A flicker of the brother I remembered. You want the world to know the truth, don't you? He asked. I nodded, my resolve hardening like steel. We spent days planning, combing through his evidence, recordings, emails Derek thought he'd deleted, handwritten notes Logan had kept as a lifeline. We found a former colleague of Logan's, a woman named Emily, who'd been pressured by Derek to stay silent about his role in the anonymous tip that cost Logan his job. She was scared, but willing to talk, her voice shaking as she confirmed what Logan had always known. We tracked down others, a friend who'd been warned off, a coworker who'd seen Derek's manipulations firsthand. Each piece of evidence was a brick in the wall we were building, a wall that would bring Derek's lies crashing down. We leaked the evidence carefully, anonymously at first, letting the media connect the dots. The recordings hit the news like a wildfire, Derek's voice echoing across headlines. If you don't shut up, I'll make sure you have nothing left. A nurse from his hospital came forward, confirming he'd forged documents to discredit Logan years ago. Another testified about his pattern of intimidation, how he'd used his charm and influence to silence anyone who questioned him. The investigation widened, and Derek's campaign unraveled. His award ceremony was canceled, his suspension from the hospital announced on the evening news. The city that had once adored him turned away, whispering about the doctor who'd betrayed his own brother. Social media exploded, posts dissecting his every move, his every lie. The billboards came down, replaced by blank spaces that felt like a metaphor for the hole he'd left in our lives. Our family shattered. Mom and Dad were devastated, unable to reconcile the son they'd idolized with the man who'd orchestrated Logan's downfall. They begged him to come home, to forgive, to rebuild what was left. But Logan shook his head, his eyes distant as he looked out at the forest. Home's where you're free, he told me, gesturing to the trees, the creek, the life he'd built. This is home now. I understood. The family we'd known was built on a lie, a fragile illusion that crumbled under the weight of the truth. Logan had found something truer in the quiet of his new life, something no one could take from him. I chose Logan's side. I couldn't go back to the family that had ignored his pain for so long, that had chosen Derek's shine over Logan's truth. I moved to Oregon, renting a small cabin near his RV, and together we poured our energy into his Projecto Tech platform for kids in remote areas, giving them access to learning tools most took for granted. I handled outreach, connecting with schools, nonprofits, and community leaders, while Logan coded, his fingers flying across the keyboard with a purpose I hadn't seen in years. We worked late into the nights, the RV lit by the glow of his laptop, the forest alive with the sounds of possibility. Volunteers joined us, inspired by Logan's vision, and the platform grew, reaching kids in places we'd never imagined. It wasn't about revenge. It was about proving Logan was more than Derek's shadow, more than the story he'd been forced to live. It was about building something that mattered, something that could outlast the pain. One night, as we sat by a fire outside his RV, the stars bright above us, I read one of his letters again. The last line haunted me. I didn't disappear to escape. I disappeared to survive because no one let me be myself. I looked at Logan, his face lit by the flames, and saw my brother for the first time, not the quiet one, not the failure, but the man who'd found his way back to himself. His project was changing lives, one child at a time, one line of code at a time, and I was part of it. No longer the observer. No longer the quiet sister. I was his partner, his ally, his voice when he'd had none. Together, we were rewriting our story. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone who'd ever been silenced, everyone who'd ever been forced to disappear. And in that moment, by the fire, with the forest whispering around us, I knew we'd found something stronger than Derek's lies, the truth, and the freedom it brought.